Hey, what's up, Fly Time friends? It's Casey here at Here on Fly and Tackle. Today I'm going to show you something that you're either going to love or you're going to hate. I happen to love this fly. I know a lot of people really don't, but it is really tough to argue the success that this pattern has. Today I'm going to show you all about how to tie a Squirmy Wormy. Alright, so the Squirmy Wormy. So what I've got here, I've got an Ahrex FW551 in a size 10, and that's their short shank mini jig hook, essentially. They're barbless. And to that, I have added a slotted tungsten bead, 5/32 in gold by OfishL. For my tying thread, I'm just going to use some tan thread, something, tannish kind of brown color that's going to match the color of the fly that I'm tying. So in this instance, it's going to be Uni-Thread 8/0 in the color tan. And before I put my thread on, I'm going to add a little bit of lead wire, 0.10. I quite often use a 0.015, but I don't want too thick of a body underneath this. I can adjust it with a dubbing, but I don't want it to be crazy thick, so I'm going to use a little bit thinner wire than I normally would. It's not a must. I find that adding the wire helps prop the bead up so that it sits over the eye a little bit more, or a little bit easier. You can see it's kind of flopped down there. When I put this wire in, it kind of pops up a little bit. Now you can do the same thing with thread, but I like my nymphs or my little worms or my Euro nymphs or whatever, I like them all to sink pretty fast, so throwing a few wraps of lead on definitely doesn't hurt. So we'll push that forward, and now that bead's where I like it. I'm going to tie in my thread. And that's just going to hold everything in place. So for the tail on the Squirmy Wormy, I'm going to use a Spirit River Squirmy Wormy tail in Earthworm Tan. And feel free to play with the colors. I mean, lots of colors in this material out there. This is definitely one of my favorites, the natural. I like the pink, purple, the San Juan Red's another really popular one. Those are probably my top kind of colors, and I'll play with others as well too. There's a lot of good ones out there. Alright, so from here, I'm going to take Spirit River Squirmy Wormies in the color Earthworm Tan. Now, I really like the Spirit River Squirmy Wormy tails. They're really soft and limp, so they've got a good wiggle factor or a lot of movement in the water. They also lay out nice and straight. There's lots of Squirmy Wormy materials on the market. I find some of them a little bit harder to tie with because they kink off at all kinds of different directions and it's hard to tie them in straight. Now, not that I think a fish is going to care that there's a little bit of a cockeye in the tail on your Squirmy Wormy. It's just more aesthetically pleasing to my eye to see them in the box tied nice and neat. When a worm's in the water, it's not floating down the river perfectly straight like that. There's kinks in it and stuff like that. They're moving around, so that's just why I like this material. Like I said, it's just a lot more pleasing to my eye when I see it in my fly box, and if I like the way it looks, I'm going to fish it way harder. So we'll secure this in just behind the lead wraps. And we're going to trim it to length. Now, you can always make them shorter on the river. It's really hard to add length. Alright, so we've got our tail locked in place, and now, like I was saying, even there, it's kicked up a little bit. It's not going to matter. Fish isn't going to refuse it. So for the body, real simple. I take a little bit of a blend of two different dubbings. Ice dub in Tan UV. Really like the kind of UV shine that this provides the fly. And a little bit of Hare's Ear Plus in the color Tan. Now, I just chose this because it was a little bit darker. There can be some variations in this from time to time, but just something with a little bit more brown in it just to kind of knock down or sorry, not to knock down, but just to kind of closely match the tail color a little bit better. So I've just blended, you know, a pinch of each just by mixing it back and forth in my fingers. Real simple. So I'm just going to make a quick dubbing noodle on my thread. I'm not looking for a whole bunch of bulk. I just basically want to cover the hook shank. Real simple. Just wrap the body with that. And then for a collar, I'm going to take some Hareline CDC called a Canard in the color tan. And I'm going to make a quick dubbing loop. But in that dubbing loop, I'm going to put those fibers from that CDC. So we've got these Hareline material clips in different sizes. You've probably seen me use these before. Very handy tool for working with dubbing loops and stuff like that. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my CDC feather, I'm going to grab my clamp, and I'm not looking for a ton of it in this, so I'm kind of being a little bit lazy here. I'm not folding it over or anything like that. But basically I've got it in my clamp here, and I'm just going to trim the feathers off of the stem. I'll do that off camera because it's kind of difficult to do with the camera in between me and what I'm doing, and my arms outstretched all the way. But so you can see I've trimmed that off the stem, leaving that exposed, and I'll be able to fire that into my dubbing loop here real quick. So we'll just double our thread over on itself. I'm going to grab my dubbing loop twister. And my material from this clamp. Give it a couple of spins just to hold it there. And you can see it's quite sparse. I'm not looking for a whole lot here. Alright, we're going to transfer this dubbing loop into a set of hackle pliers. And I'm just going to trim that off and set that tool free. Now I'm just going to wrap this as a quick collar. And this is just going to give a little bit of movement to the front of the fly as well too. Just CDC really flows and breathes in the water and just kind of makes stuff look alive. It could also trap bubbles, give it a little bit of more sparkle. But we don't want a lot. Just as a little bit of an accent. And you can tie it without as well too. You see lots of, there's a million different variations of Squirmy Wormies out there. This just happens to be one that I like a lot, so I thought I'd share it with you. Quick whip finish right in behind our bead. Just going to make sure we're not going to trap any of those CDC fibers in there. Stroke them back. Second whip for good luck. Trim that off. Apply your favorite cement, whether it's UV or just a regular head cement, nail polish, whatever it is. If you get little, longer wispy bits, you can give them a trim. You can pinch them off, whatever you like. But essentially, there you have the Squirmy Wormy. So these are a wicked effective fly. Not a lot of, I shouldn't say not a lot of people like them, but there is, there are a group of anglers out there that don't like these things because they got rubber in the tail and it's a lure and blah, blah, blah. The San Juan worm has been around for longer than I've been fly fishing, and it's essentially the same sort of thing. It's just it's a chenille body worm pattern that's been very, very effective in the fly fishing world forever, as far as I'm concerned. This is just kind of the new age version. Here's a variation I have of it as well. again with the natural kind of color, but just with a pink bead just to help grab their attention. So I'll tie this, you know, pink bead, gold bead, copper bead, even like that magic brown coffee kind of color is a good one on there. You know, that bright pink bead will help stand out in a little bit dirtier water, and just something, you know, like a hot spot almost to help grab their attention or trigger a strike. 100% not only for Euro nymphing. You can fish it under an indicator however you like it. A great fly to use if you're not sure what's hatching, you know, what's happening out there. Those are always a good bet, especially in the springtime after a little bit of rain, when those worms are kind of active and moving around. If you're ever fishing and you see like worms in a puddle and stuff like that, when there's a lot of worm activity, great fly to fish. And you know, until you can figure out what's happening, or you get a you know, a dry fly hatch or something like that. So it's been a day saver for me more than once. Great pattern to have in the box. If you haven't already jumped into the world of Squirmy Wormies, I highly suggest you give it a try. So thanks for watching, everybody. I really hope you like this fly. Smash that like button for me, and like always, I'll have the links for all the materials in the description below, available to purchase them online at www.c-run.com, or else come by the shop, and more than happy to get you all set up. Thanks for watching.